The morning sun filtered through the gauzy curtains of Emma and Daniel's bedroom, casting a soft golden glow over the room. Emma stirred awake, her hand instinctively reaching for the other side of the bed. It was empty, the sheets cool to the touch. She sighed, her fingers brushing against the indentation where Daniel should have been. He had left for work early again, slipping out before the alarm even rang. Emma sat up, running a hand through her tousled auburn hair. She glanced at the clock on the nightstand. 7:15 a.m., plenty of time before she had to log in for her remote design job. She padded to the kitchen, the hardwood floor cool beneath her bare feet. The coffee machine gurgled as she poured herself a cup, the rich aroma filling the air. She leaned against the counter, staring out the window at the quiet suburban street. Their life was picture-perfect. A charming house, successful careers, and a marriage that everyone envied. But perfection, Emma had come to realize, was often just a facade. Daniel had always been ambitious. It was one of the things she had admired most about him when they first met. He was driven, focused, and relentless in his pursuit of success. But lately, his ambition had become a wall between them. He was always working. Late nights at the office, early mornings on calls, weekends spent drafting contracts. Emma understood the demands of his career, but she couldn't help feeling like she was slowly becoming invisible to him. She sipped her coffee, her thoughts interrupted by the buzz of her phone. It was a text from Liam, Daniel's best friend and colleague. Good morning, Emma. Just wanted to check in. How are you holding up? Emma smiled faintly. Liam had always been kind, the kind of person who noticed when someone was struggling. Over the past few months, he had become a constant presence in her life, a source of comfort when Daniel was too busy to notice her loneliness. I'm okay, she typed back. Just another quiet morning. You deserve more than quiet mornings, Liam replied almost instantly. You're too amazing to be an afterthought. Emma's chest tightened. She wasn't sure how to respond. Liam's words were sweet, but they also felt dangerous, like stepping too close to the edge of a cliff. She set her phone down, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling that had settled in her stomach. The day passed in a blur of work emails and design projects. By late afternoon, Emma was restless. She decided to take a walk, hoping the crisp autumn air would clear her mind. As she strolled through the neighborhood, her thoughts kept drifting back to Liam. He had been so attentive lately, so understanding. It was hard not to compare him to Daniel, who seemed to have little time for anything but work. When she returned home, Daniel was already there, sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop open. He looked up briefly as she walked in, offering a distracted smile. Hey, how was your day? It was fine, she said, setting her keys on the counter. Yours? Busy, he replied, his eyes already back on the screen. We've got a big case coming up, and I need to be prepared. Emma nodded, biting back the words she wanted to say. What about us? When do we get to be a priority? Instead, she busied herself with making dinner, the silence between them heavy and unspoken. Later that evening, as they sat on the couch watching a movie, Emma's phone buzzed again. It was another text from Liam. Thinking of you. Hope you're doing okay. She glanced at Daniel, who was engrossed in the film, oblivious to the world around him. For a moment she hesitated. Then, almost against her better judgment, she typed a reply. Thank you, Liam. It means a lot. As she hit send, a pang of guilt shot through her. She wasn't doing anything wrong, she told herself. It was just a text. But deep down she knew it was more than that. It was a crack in the foundation of her marriage, a tiny fissure that threatened to grow with every word. By the time the movie ended, Daniel was already half asleep. He kissed her goodnight and headed to bed, leaving Emma alone with her thoughts. She sat in the dimly lit living room, her phone clutched in her hand. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that felt suffocating. Emma stared at the blank TV screen, her reflection staring back at her. She looked tired, her eyes shadowed with something she couldn't quite name. For the first time in a long time, she felt truly alone. And in that loneliness, she found herself wondering if Liam's attention was the lifeline she needed, or the beginning of something she couldn't take back. The following week passed in a haze of stolen glances and lingering conversations. Emma found herself looking forward to Liam's texts, his words a bright spot in her otherwise monotonous days. She told herself it was harmless, just friendship. But the line between friendship and something more was becoming increasingly blurred. It was Friday evening when Liam suggested they meet for coffee. "You've been cooped up at home too much," he texted. Let me take you out. You deserve a break. Emma hesitated, her fingers hovering over the screen. She knew Daniel would be working late again, buried in case files and conference calls. The thought of spending another evening alone was unbearable. "Okay," she replied. But just coffee. They met at a cozy cafe downtown, the kind of place with mismatched furniture and the scent of freshly baked pastries wafting through the air. Liam was already there when she arrived, his face lighting up as she walked in. He stood to greet her, pulling her into a warm hug that lingered just a moment too long. "You look amazing," he said, his voice soft. Emma felt a flush of warmth spread through her chest. "Thanks," she murmured, sliding into the seat across from him. They talked for hours, the conversation flowing effortlessly. Liam had a way of making her feel seen, heard, valued in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. He asked about her work, her dreams, her fears, things Daniel hadn't bothered to ask in months. "You're too good for him, you know," Liam said suddenly, his tone serious. Emma froze, her coffee cup halfway to her lips. "What do you mean?" "Daniel," Liam said, leaning forward. "He doesn't appreciate you. He's so caught up in his own world that he doesn't even notice how incredible you are." Emma's heart pounded in her chest. She wanted to argue to defend Daniel, but the words wouldn't come, because deep down she knew Liam was right. "I just hate seeing you like this," Liam continued, his voice gentle. "You deserve someone who puts you first. Someone who sees how amazing you are." Emma looked away, her eyes stinging with unshed tears. She didn't know how to respond, how to reconcile the growing attraction she felt for Liam with the guilt that gnawed at her conscience. The evening ended with a promise to meet again, though neither of them specified when. As Emma drove home, her mind was a whirlwind of emotions. She felt alive in a way she hadn't in months, but that newfound vitality was tinged with a sense of dread. Daniel was already home when she walked through the door, his tie loosened and his sleeves rolled up. He looked up from his laptop, offering her a tired smile. "Hey, where've you been?" "Just out," she said, her voice unnaturally bright. "Grabbed some coffee." Daniel nodded, his attention already drifting back to his work. "That's nice." Emma stood in the doorway, watching him for a moment. She wanted to tell him about her evening, about the way Liam made her feel, but the words stuck in her throat. Instead, she turned and headed upstairs, the weight of her secrets pressing down on her. Over the next few days, the texts from Liam became more frequent, more intimate. He sent her songs that reminded him of her, articles he thought she'd find interesting, little notes to brighten her day. Emma found herself eagerly awaiting his messages, her heart skipping a beat every time her phone buzzed. It was on a rainy Thursday afternoon that things took a turn. Emma was working from home when Liam texted, asking if he could stop by. "I'm in the neighborhood," he said. Just for a quick visit. Emma hesitated, glancing around the empty house. Daniel was at work, and she knew he wouldn't be home for hours. "Okay," she replied, her fingers trembling slightly. But just for a little while. When Liam arrived, he was carrying a bouquet of flowers, her favorite lilies. "For you," he said, handing them to her with a smile. Emma felt her breath catch in her throat. "Liam, you shouldn't have." "I wanted to," he interrupted, his eyes locking onto hers. You deserve to be spoiled. They sat on the couch, talking and laughing like old friends. But there was an undercurrent of tension, a palpable energy that neither of them could ignore. It was Liam who made the first move, his hand brushing against hers as he reached for his coffee. Emma's heart raced, her mind screaming at her to pull away. But she didn't. And then, in a moment of weakness, she leaned in. Their lips met in a kiss that was both tender and desperate, a collision of longing and guilt. For a brief moment, Emma forgot about Daniel, about the life they had built together. All that mattered was the way Liam made her feel, wanted, cherished, alive. But as quickly as it began, it ended. Emma pulled away, her chest heaving as she stared at Liam in shock. "We can't do this," she whispered, her voice trembling. Liam reached for her hand, his expression earnest. "Emma, I care about you. More than you know. I don't want to hurt Daniel, but I can't keep pretending I don't feel this way." Emma shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "This is wrong. We're wrong." Liam's grip tightened. "Maybe it doesn't have to be. Maybe this is our chance to be happy." Emma wanted to believe him, wanted to let herself fall into the fantasy he was offering. But the guilt was too much, the weight of her betrayal crushing her. "I need to think," she said, pulling her hand away. "Please just go." Liam hesitated, then nodded. He stood, his expression a mix of regret and determination. "I'll give you space. But Emma, don't forget how you feel right now. Don't forget us." As the door closed behind him, Emma sank to the floor, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. She had crossed a line, one she wasn't sure she could come back from. And as she sat there, alone in the silence, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to change forever. The days that followed were a blur of guilt and confusion. Emma avoided Liam's calls and texts, her mind a tangled mess of emotions. She tried to focus on her work, on Daniel, on anything that would distract her from the weight of what she had done. But the memory of that kiss lingered, a constant reminder of her betrayal. Daniel, oblivious to the turmoil brewing within her, continued his usual routine. He was more attentive than usual, perhaps sensing her distance, but his efforts felt hollow compared to the intensity of Liam's affection. It was on a quiet Sunday morning that everything came crashing down. Emma was in the kitchen preparing breakfast when Daniel walked in, his expression unreadable. He held her phone in his hand, the screen lit up with a text from Liam. Asterisk, "I can't stop thinking about you. We need to talk." Asterisk. Emma's heart stopped. She stared at Daniel, her mind racing as she tried to find the words to explain. "Daniel, How long?" he interrupted, his voice cold and steady. Emma felt the color drain from her face. "It's not what you think." "Don't," Daniel snapped, his composure cracking. "Don't insult me by lying. How long has this been going on?" Emma swallowed hard, tears welling in her eyes. "It was just one moment, Daniel. One mistake. I didn't mean for it to happen." Daniel's jaw tightened, his hands clenching into fists at his sides. "One moment. One mistake. Do you have any idea how much this hurts?" Emma reached for him, but he stepped back, his expression a mix of anger and heartbreak. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I never wanted to hurt you." Daniel shook his head, his eyes blazing with betrayal. "You should have thought about that before you let him into our lives. Before you let him into your heart." The words hit her like a punch to the gut. She had no defense, no excuse that could justify her actions. All she could do was stand there, tears streaming down her face, as the man she loved looked at her with a mixture of disgust and sorrow. "I need some space," Daniel said finally, his voice hollow. "I can't be around you right now." He turned and walked out, leaving Emma alone in the kitchen, the weight of her choices crushing her. The days that followed were a nightmare. Daniel moved into the guest room, his presence a constant reminder of the rift between them. He barely spoke to her, his silence more painful than any argument. Emma tried to reach out, to explain, to apologize, but Daniel was unreachable. He threw himself into his work, using it as a shield to protect himself from the pain. Meanwhile, Liam continued to text, his messages growing more desperate. Asterisk. Emma, please talk to me. I can't lose you. Asterisk. But Emma couldn't bring herself to respond. She was drowning in guilt, her heart torn between the man she had betrayed and the man who had made her feel alive. It was on a rainy evening, a week after the confrontation, that Emma finally broke. She sat on the edge of the bed, her phone in her hand, staring at Liam's latest message. Asterisk. I love you, Emma. I always have. Asterisk. The words were a dagger to her heart. She wanted to believe him, to let herself fall into the fantasy he was offering. But the cost was too high. With trembling fingers, she typed a reply. Asterisk. I can't do this anymore, Liam. It's over. Asterisk. She hit send before she could change her mind, her chest heaving with sobs. It was the hardest thing she had ever done, but she knew it was the right thing. The next morning, she found Daniel in the kitchen, his face drawn and tired. He looked up as she walked in, his expression unreadable. We need to talk, she said, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. Daniel nodded, his eyes wary. Emma took a deep breath, her heart pounding in her chest. I'm sorry, Daniel. For everything. I know I've hurt you, and I don't expect you to forgive me. But I want to try to fix this if you'll let me. Daniel stared at her for a long moment, his expression softening slightly. I don't know if I can trust you again, Emma. But I'm willing to try. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a start. As they sat there, the silence between them heavy with unspoken words, Emma felt a glimmer of hope. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but she was determined to rebuild what she had broken. And as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the window, she knew that this was just the beginning of their journey toward healing.